it's Chris from Rat Race Rebellion. Whether it's by choice or out of necessity, older workers are staying in the workforce or rejoining the workforce more often than ever before. And that's pretty wild. I guess on the one hand, it's a good thing. People are living longer and a lot of people are realizing that they're bored in retirement and they want to go back to work. On the other hand, it's a not good thing because there are a lot of older people who would really like to be retired, who are just not in a financial position where they can do that. And therefore, the only alternative is to stay in the workforce or return to the workforce, as the case may be. But this just isn't for people who are in their 50s or 60s or 70s. A lot of people in their 40s are already starting to feel that they're facing ageism or age bias when they're looking for work. And this video is going to focus on how you can position yourself as a more attractive hire to the employers and simple steps that you can take to help you present yourself in a way that's going to get you in for an interview. So sort of how to polish things off and get in there and go elbow to elbow with those young kids that are out there applying for the same darn jobs. Before I dive into this, I do want to encourage you, if you haven't already done so, to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We cover all things having to do with remote work here, everything from finding jobs to applying for them, getting your resume in shape, interviewing, and then ultimately landing that job. And we also talk a lot about avoiding scams, how to spot them, how to avoid them, and what to do if, God forbid, you get tangled up with one. While employers should not be taking the age of an applicant into account when they're assessing candidates, there are some things that older candidates can do to help them level the playing field. And I want to go over some of those with you right now. Some of them may seem obvious, maybe others not so much. First of all, for all of you out there who are currently using an AOL account or a Yahoo account or a Hotmail account, that's fine for your personal email. Please get yourself a Gmail address or something similar that is more up to date. Having an AOL address on your resume screams old school. It screams, here's somebody who doesn't want to update into the modern times. And that is not what you want your resume saying about you. I mean, you could be the most technically up-to-date person in the world who just everybody has your AOL address or your Hotmail address or your Yahoo address, and for that reason you don't want to change it. Don't change it for the people who already have it. Do change it for your resume. Get out there, get yourself a free Gmail address. It's super simple to do, and just update in that way. All right, so that's the very first thing. Simple, see? All right. The second thing that I want to encourage you to do is, as we talk about your resume, I want you to first of all think about how you can update older job titles. So, for example, if your resume says data processing clerk, you'll probably want to update that to data entry specialist, for example, because data processing clerk is a dated job title. Data entry specialist is more current. Likewise with telephone operator, customer service rep, word processor to document specialist, secretary to administrative assistant, mail sorter to postal processing clerk, copy editor to content editor. Simple changes, and it doesn't change the fact that what you did was essentially the same, but what it does do is it puts it into the context of today's reader and what they're looking for. The other thing that I want to remind you of before we really dive in is don't be an age apologist. So many times I hear people who are older, they apologize for their status in life and things that they don't have control over. With an older worker, it's your age. You can't apologize for something, and you shouldn't apologize for something that you have no control over. So in your cover letter, And verbally, stop using phrases like, in spite of my age, or though it's been a while, because right off the bat, you're planting a red flag where there doesn't have to be one. Don't call attention to something that should be a non-issue. And by the way, a lot of people falsely think that there is a law against interviewers or companies asking for your age or your birth date. And unfortunately, that is not the case. They can ask that question. So if they're not asking, don't volunteer. Don't volunteer that information. All right. Don't plant biases where they may not already exist. All right. One more thing that I want to remind you to do is make sure that you have relevant skills that are going to resonate with your interviewer, the person who ultimately you're going to be speaking with about hiring you. And especially, I mean, if you're here at Rat Race Rebellion, there's a good chance you're looking for a remote job, something you can do from home. But whether that's the case or not, it's really important for you to know your way around at least one way of web conferencing, like Zoom or Microsoft Teams, where you can communicate with your office staff or other remote workers through this mechanism, because a lot of people now just will not pick up the phone. All right. Oftentimes, if there's a meeting, it is going to be a virtual meeting. So take the time to get to know those tools, even if it means you're going to have a Zoom with a family member who knows how to use Zoom, or you're going to have a Microsoft Teams meeting with somebody in your family or a friend who knows how to use Microsoft Teams. You don't have to be proficient, but know your way around it so that you're not caught blindsided. If somebody says to you, yeah, let's do a Zoom interview or let's interview over Microsoft Teams, you don't want to be that candidate who's saying, yeah, I've never used that. Right off the bat, then you're the one planting a red flag. Also, if you haven't used Microsoft Word or haven't used it in a while, a lot of companies are using Microsoft Office tools. So take a moment to get to know or brush off your skills with Microsoft Word and Excel and maybe even PowerPoint. And I'm going to include a link in the description below that will show you where you can find some free online classes that you can take on Microsoft tools, just so you can dust off those skills and get to know them a little bit better. And by the way, that way you can include in your resume that you took those online courses, and it shows that you are striving toward continuous education, continuous learning. And that will give you a leg up as well. So many people just don't bother to continue to learn once they've landed in the workforce. So showing that you are taking the initiative to continue to learn, that's a real feather in your cap. All right, let's talk about your resume. You may have a very long work history, but you probably don't need to tell everybody all about every job that you have done up until this point, okay? And of course, that depends on the nature of the work that you've done. But in most cases, anything that goes back more than the last 10 to 15 years is probably more than a current employer is going to want to know or need to know. All right. So by updating your resume to focus on your most recent and relevant experience and skills, you can present yourself as a competitive candidate. Okay. And in today's job market, that can help to work around that, any potential age discrimination. If your skills are relevant, if your experience is relevant, then your age should not come into play. And I know that a lot of people who are older candidates worry that the hiring manager is going to look at them and think, well, what's your longevity going to be? You know, you're 60 years old. How long are you going to be with us? Most, especially younger interviewers, are not thinking that way. It is really rare that a candidate in their 20s, 30s, or even 40s is going to stay with a company for more than 5 or 6 years. So your longevity isn't going to be, you know, in terms of how long you're planning to stay in the workforce. shouldn't be a factor as long as you have the right skills and experience to bring to the table. So you can take that off your worry list. One thing that may have changed since the last time you applied for a job, if you haven't done so recently, is the application process. Most jobs, of course, now you're applying online. The days of hand-delivered resumes where you go into the office place and you deliver them. I guess you could still do that if you're looking for a local job or you're dropping it in the mail. But if you're looking for a remote job, you're probably going to be filling out an online application. And one of the steps in that application is going to be to upload your resume. And between that place where you're uploading the resume and the ultimate human decision maker, now there is applicant tracking software, or ATS, commonly referred to as bots. And if those bots don't like your resume, if they don't like the format and they can't digest the information, they can't parse it or separate it out into data, they can't review it and rank it, then there's high probability that your resume is never going to get into the hands of a human decision maker. So that's not age discrimination, it's resume formatting discrimination. Okay, so it's really important that you get your application or you get your resume in the right applicant tracking software friendly format. And we cover all of that in Module 8 of our free online course. And it covers what applicant tracking software is, how you can tweak your resume so that the bots will read it and parse it with no problems. I'm going to include a link to that again in our description of the video below. You might need to click the more link to see all of it down there, but we will include that link there so you can easily hop over to that module. I'm not going to recreate the module here, but I do want to go over some of the basics. All right. Historically, and I know because I'm no spring chicken myself, we used to put an objective statement at the beginning of every resume. Those days are gone. Now, instead of an objective statement, you're going to want to put in a summary statement. The reason for that is an objective statement was most often about what do you want to get out of a job. And employers now are being pretty candid about the fact that, you know, what you want is up to you. What we want from you is what you can do for us. So the objective statement is out and a summary statement is in. And that summary statement should go right where the objective statement used to be. And again, when you go to that module 8 of our work from home training class, we do lead you over to some downloadable resume templates that are right on the Rat Race Rebellion site. Those are also free, and you'll be able to see how we've laid that out. So anyway, in that statement, you're going to focus on your highlights of your career, your strengths, and really everything that you bring to the table as a strong job candidate. All right. And a seasoned professional, as I've said here. We're not old, we're seasoned. I'm well seasoned. The other thing is you're going to want to use keywords throughout your cover letter and throughout your resume. Those keywords are essentially going to mirror the important words that the individual who wrote the job description have salted the job description with. So it might be words like customer service or tech savvy or detail oriented. There really are a bunch of different ones that they weave in, and you want to make sure that your resume is sprinkled with those keywords, because as the applicant tracking software reviews your resume, it's going to be looking to see if the keywords in your resume and cover letter match those that were set up by the person who wrote the job description. So one size does not fit all. Used to be we could just grab our resume, stick it in an envelope, send it out, and it could go to 10 different employers and it was all well and good. Nowadays, it's important to make sure that you're tailoring, at least to a certain extent, every resume depending on what the job description says. Employers want to know that you took the time to read their job description and make sure that your resume accurately reflects the skills that you bring to them and matches what they're looking for. Again, we cover that in Module 8. So we do want to make sure that you have that in place. With regard to the length of your resume, as I said at the beginning, you don't need to put in everything you did in your work life, from that first fast food restaurant job that you may have had when you were a teenager to whatever your current or most recent job was. Instead, focus on the last 10 to 15 years of experience, unless you had something extraordinary before that that will contribute in a meaningful way to the specific job that you are applying for today. There's not a good reason to leave anything older than 15 years on your resume. And you're going to want to focus on those that bring to the table for the employer the skills and experience that they're working for or that they're looking for. Also different in resumes now than previously. It used to be that when you made out a resume, it almost read as a job description that you worked for company XYZ, and you did this and you did that and you were responsible for this and you managed that. And companies now are looking more at what you accomplished. What were your achievements for the company? And if you have metrics on that, then so much the better. So if in that role you increased profits by 15%, or you managed, you hit your metrics every day on outgoing or incoming phone calls, whatever the metrics are, quantify them and include those into the bullet points in your resume. And again, I'm breezing through these because we cover this in Module 8. So I'm going to keep pointing you to Module 8. But I do want you to know why it's important to you, especially as an older job seeker. All right. The other thing you want to do is identify your key skills and qualifications that are required for the target position, and then tailor your resume to highlight those skills. So just like with the keywords, you want to make sure that, well, you might have been showcasing other skills for different positions. You're specifically showcasing the skills that are for this job. Again, in today's market, it's so important that every resume be tailored for each position that you are applying for. And that sounds like a just monumental undertaking, but it really isn't. Once you build your core resume, you build a foundational resume, and you use that as your building blocks for each resume that you submit for each job going forward. So what you'll do is you'll have your document, your foundation, you'll make a copy of that, and then you'll revise that copy for a specific job without in any way altering your foundational resume. All right. So you'll always have that foundation to build on. And as long as that's a solid foundation, just as with a home, if you have a solid foundation, it's not that difficult to build things that are strong on top of it. Okay. Include relevant training. I know I just mentioned that I'm going to include a link down below for Microsoft Office training that you can do for free. But if you've been taking classes, like I know my mom takes some of the Silver Sneakers classes, and I know that a lot of older people, at least in my neighborhood, go back to school. Like they'll take advantage of the free community college classes and things like that. If you're one of those people, or if you've done any sort of continuing education or have received any certifications, then it's a great way to show a prospective employer that you like to stay current on things, that not only do you learn easily, you learn hungrily. You are anxious to learn new things. You have a mind that wants to digest new things. And in that, they see somebody who's going to be highly trainable for the position that is available. So it's really important, if you haven't already done so, find something you're interested in and pick up some classes or courses if you have the time to do that. One thing about your technology skills, even if you did use these things, don't include them in your resume. If you were coding in MS-DOS, or you worked in MS-DOS, or Lotus 123, or you were working in Vista platform on your Microsoft computer, don't include those tools on there. They're no longer relevant and they date you, and you don't want them to do that. Again, if they haven't asked your age and you haven't revealed your age, don't let your resume tip your hand, okay? So anything, just like getting rid of your AOL email address on your resumes, don't put these types of things on your resume because it dates you when you don't need to be. All right. So make sure that your resume is including any modern technology experience and skills that you have, and that it is not reflecting any of those older ones. And then your education section. A lot of people have asked me this. Well, what about the fact that I graduated from college in 1974? Yeah. People might look at that and say, okay, you've got people sitting in the office going 74. Okay, so they probably would have been 22, and it's 74, 84, 94, 2004, 14, 24. That's 50, 70. This person's probably in their 70s. Don't give them what they need to do the math. Tell them where you went to school, what you graduated with, what your area of expertise was, and just drop the dates. Drop the dates. They don't need the dates. You have the diploma. You have the education. They don't need to know when you received the education. So just drop the dates. And that's all I've got to say about that. Okay. And then dealing with resume gaps. This is another one for older workers as well, or older job seekers. The older we get, the more likely it is that we have gaps in our resume. Those gaps might come from having taken a break to raise your children, or to deal with an illness of your own, or to take care of a family member or loved one in a time when they needed you due to illness or another situation. But there are ways to deal with those in your resume as well. I'm not going to go through all of those here. I'm actually going to refer you to Module 9 in our free online course. It's another video, but we do cover how to manage resume gaps in your resume and in your cover letter as well. So I don't want anybody to feel defeated going into the job search, but you have to take steps to make sure that you're a viable candidate, that you are a contender, you're a competitor, and that you're bringing a lot to the table. And I also want you to remember that there are a lot of people now who are doing the hiring who aren't really that impressed with what a younger generation is bringing to the table. They have questions about their commitment to the company, their commitment to the company values and vision and mission. They worry that they job hop. And I'm not saying that any of this is true, but I'm saying that these are concerns that companies have expressed. And I think there are a lot of people who are hiring where when they realize that they're working or interviewing an older candidate who has all of the skills and experience to bring to the table and has a history of commitment to an organization, that is a plus. That is a value add as long as you're bringing the right stuff to back it up. So don't discount what you're bringing to the table. All right. So yeah, that's all I really have to say about that. I do, again, I will be including those links down below. I will encourage you, if you're looking for a remote job, to stop by the ratracerebellion.com website. We post screened, legitimate work-from-home jobs there 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. And while you're there, subscribe to our newsletter. There's a link to do that in the upper right-hand corner of each page of our website. Good luck to all of you. And I know I gave you a lot to digest here. That's why videos are so good. We can watch them again and again, slow them down, rewind, and pick up all that information again. Again, good luck to everybody who's out there looking for a job. I look forward to hearing your success story soon. Bye-bye.